If you'd asked me 5 years ago whether I thought I'd become a cat person, I would have laughed. Not because I hate cats. I love animals, I always have. But honestly, I've connected with animals probably better than I've connected with a lot of people. But cats, they confuse me. Growing up and even later, like when I started to work with cats, I had one rule: keep your distance. They'd seem fine, they'd seem content, and then the moment was calm and they would swipe or hiss at you. So somewhere along the way, I decided that the best way to love cats was to be respectful and keep your distance. So dogs, on the other hand, dogs made a lot of sense to me. I could read dogs' body language, and they wore their hearts on the outside. Cats felt like a language that I didn't speak. So if you told me that one day I would own a cat, make videos about him, and genuinely call myself a cat person, I would have said you had the wrong person. But I think before I can explain how I became a cat person, I have to explain how I became such a dog person. I didn't grow up with dogs. When I was about 3 years old, I was gifted a puppy, and that puppy was everything for me. But not long after, he was stolen. And of course, my heart was broken, my brother's heart was broken, my mom's heart was broken. And it hurt my mom so much that she made the decision: no more pets. She didn't want us to experience that kind of heartbreak again. So for a long time, I had to love dogs from a distance. But when I got to college, I wanted a job, and ironically, my mom wasn't excited about the idea. She wanted me to focus on school, but once she realized I was determined, she gave me some advice that I really never forgot. She said, if you're going to work while you're in college, you should try to work somewhere you'll actually enjoy, because one day you might not have that opportunity. And I don't know if she even remembers saying that, but it did stick with me. And at the time, I was volunteering at the local animal shelter a lot. When I say I was volunteering, I mean I practically lived there. I walked dogs, I would sit with them, I would lay in the cages with them, read them things from my phone, and sometimes I spent so much time in the kennel it looked like I was trying to move in. I loved being around dogs, and so one day I had this thought: if I love spending time with dogs, why not try working with them? So I think this is going to age me, but I found a post on Craigslist for a doggy daycare. I sent an email, no response. I sent another email, no response. So I started to spam the same email over and over again. And looking back, I definitely forced my way in, but somebody eventually answered, and I told them I don't have professional experience. I haven't spent my whole life raising dogs, but I spend all of my free time volunteering at the shelter, and I'll work as hard as anybody if you'll give me the chance. And somehow they took a chance on me. The first doggy daycare gave me an opportunity, but the second doggy daycare is where my life really changed. Because around that time, I met a little black puppy named Blade. And the funny part is, I did not want Blade. I didn't choose him. I thought something was wrong with him. I thought his eyes looked a little off. I thought his belly was huge, and I was convinced that he probably had worms. I actually wanted a different puppy, but my boyfriend at the time completely disagreed. He loved Blade immediately, and it turns out that he was right. And Blade became the love of my life. And I know that is a huge statement to make, but it's the truth. I had dreams when I was younger, and strangely enough, they weren't really about marriage or kids. My biggest dream was always to have a dog. And somehow, I ended up with one that changed my entire life and changed the trajectory of my life. I worked weekends at the doggy daycare, and Blake came to work with me every single weekend. He had his own friends, he had his own routine, he had his own community. And looking back, I was thinking we both grew up there, it is true. We both grew up there. I was in my early 20s. But there's something that I've realized lately. When I was in my early 20s, I wasn't a very emotional person, or maybe my emotions just weren't easy to access. I would explain what I thought. Could solve problems. I could intellectualize like almost anything, but feeling was difficult. And Blade changed that for me. He became the place where my emotions could exist safely. It's hard to explain unless you've experienced it, but somehow he bypassed all the defenses that I had, and he made me a lot softer of a person. And eventually, my relationship ended, and there was never a question about who Blade was going with. He was coming home with me. And by the end, he wasn't just my dog. Blade was my family. And not long after that, I graduated from college and started thinking about moving out. Renting seemed like the obvious next step, but I had what I used to call a pit bull thing. He was some sort of mix. He came from animal control. And if you have ever owned a dog, you know what people are afraid of and what it can mean if you have a pit bull. Breed restrictions, pet rent, people making assumptions before they ever meet your dog. And I realized the safest place for Blade wasn't an apartment. It was a home that he belonged to, or a home that I owned. So I bought a house, not because home ownership had always been my dream, because I wanted my dog to have somewhere nobody could ever take away from him. And looking back, I don't think I built my life around owning a home. I built my life around one dog. And I honestly believed we'd have so much time together. I knew dogs didn't live forever, and I mean, everybody knows that, but somehow I never imagined my life without Blade. I guess that's where the next chapter actually begins.